Hey besties, welcome back to another vlog. Today we are starting off the vlog in a very exciting manner because we are going downtown. That is right, downtown Seattle. I almost never go downtown. It's definitely a special occasion, but I love when I do. It makes me feel like a proper little city girl, and that is what we're doing today. So we caught a train and a bus to get to Sodo. Sodo is like an industrial area south of downtown, hence Sodo. And we started off our little expedition by going to Starbucks Reserve, which is essentially Starbucks on steroids. It has a completely different menu. The drinks are actually properly crafted. There's also a bar in there, which is so random, but they have the most amazing drinks and food. Like, their matcha tastes so much more like a proper matcha than a normal Starbucks matcha does. They also have this amazing dish called Eggs in Purgatory that I ordered, which is like an eggs tomato sauce toast situation. Incredible, 10 out of 10. I ended up actually FaceTiming Andy and Caitlin during this little writing session, which the group chat that I have going with Andy and Caitlin is literally responsible for 90% of the words that I've gotten in so far this month. I'm obsessed. We do so many productive writing sprints together. It's been so freaking fun, but I was obviously working on revising my novel, which we'll chat a little bit more about my revision status in this video, but I'm working on draft 2 of my fantasy, so that's what I was working on here. The ambiance in this place is honestly just incredible. Huge fan. Then after we wrapped up our little sesh at Starbucks Reserve, we went properly downtown, did some walking around, and tried out this new coffee shop that I had never been to before. I ordered a blueberry matcha, and typically flavored matchas tend to not be very good, in my opinion. They tend to taste super artificial and just don't typically impress me, but this one was amazing. So shout out to Anchorhead, they know what they're doing. And then we went to see Wicked, and I got absolutely zero footage of that. So, whoops. All right, I'm gonna kick it over to non-voiceover Brielle to talk to you guys a little bit more. Thanks for coming downtown with me. I would love to do more little segments like this, actually exploring the city. Maybe I'll take you guys to Pike Place Market. Let me know if you'd be interested. Hello. The theme of today's vlog is going out and about for our writing sessions, exploring some new fun locations, new for you, not quite new for me. Writing in cafes, libraries, all the things. You guys saw I went downtown, which is always like an occasion, a bit of a rarity, and did a writing session at a Starbucks Reserve down in Sodo. And today we are going to a fun little library, so I'm really excited. I've been talking about how I've been really loving writing at my desk lately, which still stands. I'm loving the mechanical keyboard experience, and like doing Discord sprints at my desk is like my new fixation. But I also am someone who does value, getting into new locations for writing sessions, getting inspired. And so that's what we're focusing on in this vlog. Quick little revision update. I actually just finished a live stream with Diane, which was so much fun. Thank you if you came to that live stream. It was a Sunday morning, which I've done a few of those now, and I actually really like them. I feel like there's something about starting off the day with writing with a friend that's just really fun. But I got to work on chapter 31, which I think is my favorite chapter in the book, low-key. I didn't even realize it was, but it is. And when I read it, I could just tell that when I drafted it, I was fully in what was happening. Like, it feels like the type of chapter that I drafted just like in full flow state. And I don't know whether or not that was actually the case, but it feels that way. And that's cool. So I barely had to touch it, to be honest. It was in great condition. And it was the first time that I can remember in draft 2 working on a chapter and just truly getting sucked into the emotions of the scene and being more focused on that than I was on the problems. And wow, what a rewarding, refreshing feeling, one that I hope to feel more and more as I get into later drafts of this book and it starts to get to that place where it's a little more readable and I can actually enjoy it, like enjoy my own story. Because when you're in revisions and you're so focused on problems, and it feels like so many of the chapters are a mess, at least in my case, because I pantsed the draft, and also I was just like a really rusty writer at the time. So, some of the chapters feel like a mess and they feel chaotic and not true which I've talked a little bit about this concept of truth in writing and how there are certain chapters or scenes where I get them to a point where it feels right and it feels accurate and true to the book. When there's a lot of chapters that just don't feel that way, sometimes it can start to feel like there's not a lot of gold there yet. And hitting a chapter that in its draft one state felt like a little dirty gold, like maybe it had some dust on it, but there was gold there. That was really encouraging and has made me really want to keep going. Like I said, that was chapter 31, which means I've officially broken into the 30s in chapters, which feels crazy. I'm going to show you where I'm at in terms of the printed first draft. One second, this is going to be a little bit difficult because this draft is really beaten up at this point. It's a little hard to show you, so bear with me. The big section is what I've already done. The small section is what I have left. It's really not that much, which is crazy. My goal is to finish this draft by the end of February. That's my new aim. Also, I watched The Hunger Games last night, and PETA has been living in my head rent-free ever since. But also it was just so nice to watch that because I've mentioned that this book has dystopian vibes, and by no means is The Hunger Games a comp. Like, there's no fatal competition or anything like that. There's no concept of districts. Like, by no means is Hunger Games like a close comp for my book, to clarify. But there are certain elements that tie to each other. Like, the KEJs in my book are very much inspired by peacekeepers, the sort of government, there's some similarities. I say all of that to say it was just really inspiring to watch a piece that I think is so impactful and well done and just like in a similar-ish genre to what I'm working on. And yeah, I love PETA as a love interest. If you've ever wondered what type of love interests I love and want to write, PETA is a great example. Love him. Feel free to sound off in the comments. Team PETA or Team Gale? There is only one right answer, and it's not Team Gale. Sorry. Okay, let's go to this library before I make anyone mad. Hi guys, it's time for an update. We're going to chat all about the library writing session as well as just like some reflections on revision right now in general. That was the most productive revision day I think I've had since starting this draft. I got through about 4,000 words of material and it felt so amazing, so romanticized. I think really dedicating a day to writing in a way that I hadn't in a while was so fulfilling and sweet and just like, it felt like an exhale, you know? It was a Sunday, like I could be a little bit more leisurely and really just like focus on this project, and it felt so nice. I think working through that like really emotional, intense scene gave me a lot of like fire under my butt and like really pushed me forward to keep getting through a few other chapters that day. I am currently now on chapter 34 out of what is now 44 chapters. So I'm officially only 10 chapters away from the end of this book, and I'm ready. I'm ready to finish a draft. It feels like I've gone a really long time without the win of finishing a draft. It's been something like 8 or 9 months since I started revising this project, and I don't even think I processed that. Like, that is crazy to me. That's longer than draft 1 took. And so I think I need the win of finishing draft 2 soon. which it will be soon, but wow, has it been a process for sure. To be fair, I did take November completely off from working on revision, so I guess it's really only been like 7 months, but still, in terms of revision reflections, like I feel like I'm in a stage right now where I have to just put my head down and do the work type of thing. There are parts of the writing process where I have a lot of thoughts and I'm really excited about scenes that I'm writing and blah, blah, blah. And then there's parts of the writing process that's really just like me showing up to the page every day and making sure that I'm being consistent and like getting through the brunt work of making a book work. And that's the part of the process that I'm in now. And so kind of like I talked about in my episode with Andy of AuthorTube Cafe, like there's parts of the writing process where you kind of do have to just like do it semi in isolation, not completely, but like a little bit more closed away and like in the cave of it. And that I think is where I'm at right now. I think a lot of people who have been in developmental edits can relate that it's just like a bit of a chugging through the process type of vibe. That being said, I just got through to me, it's like a duller part of the book, a couple little scenes that are very needed, but not overly enthusiastic. One of them, though, is super critical for the relationship between my main character and the secondary female character. And I added a lot to that scene. I added all sorts of dialogue. It's a scene where they kind of dive a little bit into the secondary female character's backstory and like why she came on this journey, which has kind of been a bit of a question mark to our main character this whole time. And so we learn a little bit about her and her motivation. And what I realized while I was working on that scene is that I actually needed to work in my main character starting to realize her deeper want. Slight spoilers incoming, but not really. So my main character has the shallow want of wanting to help her sister. She comes on this journey because it's going to benefit her sister, help her sister get out of a bad situation. But in her subconscious, in the back of her mind, she also wants to get out of that bad situation. And coming on this journey is a way for her to like escape and do something for herself, give herself a chance at a better life. And so even though subconsciously I think that need is always kind of there, she needs to kind of realize that it's there, if that makes sense. And I don't think that really existed in draft one. They kind of get to the final destination that they're going to on this journey, and then they're kind of forced to stay there. Spoilers, I'm sure you'll forget by the time you read this book. They're kind of forced to stay in this new location. And so there's no active decision on the part of our main character, how it stands in draft one, of, oh, I want this. I want to choose this for myself. No longer am I doing this because of my sister or because I'm being forced to stay in this other place. I want this chance at something better for myself. And I guess I kind of realized, in an effort to avoid being on the nose, cheesy, cliche, if you will, I kept so much of that like realization and her like big moment, I guess, off the page. There is a proper Dark Night of the Soul where she has like reflections about herself and her life and all of that and taking charge of that, but there wasn't enough like crumbs leading up to it. So all of that is to say, I realized that in this moment between her and the female secondary character, where they're already being kind of vulnerable with each other, would be a great opportunity for the secondary character to say something that hints at that realization our main character needs to have. And then the main character can kind of like shut it down, get defensive, like, no, we can't do that. We can't stay in this place. But then kind of be like, but wait, like it kind of plants a little seed in her mind. And then ultimately when they end up staying in the new location, it's not so much like she's just being dragged through these events, but I've realized that maybe this is actually what I need or want or whatever. Does that make sense? Basically, I realized I was playing it a little bit safe because I was scared of it being bad. And so I was just omitting these things. And I noticed that's a pattern throughout this draft, is I feel like I can tell when I was writing it scared and when I was writing it overly cautious, because I was so worried about doing the thing badly that I just didn't do the thing. And it leads to a lot more vague and lackluster manuscript because I never go there. And the moments where I do go there, like the Dark Night of the Soul and the big romantic conflict where I was able to kind of like forget about all of those fears and reservations, those are the parts of the manuscript that like pack a punch. And yes, there's a little bit of a risk in that. Like it might not resonate with everyone. Some people might see it and think, oh, this could have been done more masterfully, subtly, whatever. But that's what makes me feel emotional when I'm reading the manuscript. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just realizing that maybe I need to full send it a little bit more at certain points. And I don't want to hammer the reader over the head with the themes or like, hey, our main character is changing. Do you notice? Like, I don't want to do that, but I also need it to be on the page enough for us to get the satisfaction of her arc. And so I'm trying to find that balance. I guess I do have stuff to say about this draft. Who would have known? It's so hard for me right now to see the book completely because I think my brain still thinks what was in draft 1 is still what's here. It hasn't caught up to the sheer amount of changes that have been made. And so I'm very much looking forward to a reread, a chance to just like actually take a look at what exists in draft 2 and how that's working in itself, disconnected from what was there originally. I'm realizing that like, especially with this draft, I'd rather err on the side of leaving more stuff in. For example, if I don't know whether I want a certain topic to be explored in one way or the other, potentially kind of leaving both in so that in my reread, I can really like see my options, if that makes sense. Like, oh, would I prefer that this topic is discussed in chapter 15 or chapter 19? As I'm doing the reread, I feel like it'll be a lot clearer to me where things need to go, what needs to be scrapped, etc. So I almost would like to overwrite in certain places of this draft. That would be, I think, better. And then I can cut a lot easier than adding more and more material, you know? That's kind of how I'm feeling. So now going into chapter 34, we're going to start getting into a big conflict between all three of our main characters, then Dark Night of the Soul, and then everything goes crazy with the climax. So the next 10 chapters I feel like are gonna feel like a whirlwind because everything is just like going. I'm ecstatic, actually. It just feels so rewarding to finally get towards the end of this book and be working through these big moments because, like I said, it feels like I've been working on this draft forever. And I think with this more accelerated progress, with doing the reread and being able to see the big picture again, I'm just going to be able to finally look at the book as like a full work again and have that perspective. And I'm really excited about that. I feel like my confidence lately with the writing has been so all over the place. I feel like I reached a really great spot of like just accepting my current ability level and accepting myself as a writer. And then I plummeted down again and I felt just like, this doesn't feel like a real book. That's the weirdest to me experience of doubting yourself as a writer is when you're reading your book and you're just like, is this what a book feels like? Like, is this choppy? I think that's been something that's really thrown me for a loop. And to be fair, I'm an underwriter, so I should have expected this. But a lot of my scenes, I'm just like, all the paragraphs are short. Like, this doesn't flow like a real book. Like, where is the connecting tissue? It's just like choppy staccato sentences that don't feel like they flow. And again, I think that's the underwriter in me. That's just like how I was as a drafter when I wrote this. But like every time I come into a new chapter that feels that way, which not all of them do, like the big emotional chapter did not feel that way. But when I come into a chapter that feels that way, it still kind of shocks me every time. Honestly, I think once I'm looking at a manuscript that's all up to draft 2 standard, instead of still seeing some of draft 1 and being jump scared by it, I think I'll feel a lot more confident in this book because it just feels weird to be kind of confronted with stuff that I wrote a year ago when, as crazy as it sounds, I feel like I was such a different writer, you know? Yeah, the self-perception in terms of revising and writing has been a bit of a trip lately. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but I'm trying to have like faith and confidence in myself and my ability to revise this book really well and work with some of that rougher material, even though there are times when I'm just like, should I have rewritten this thing from scratch? Also, random side note, but I did get a compliment in my last video about these Avatar The Last Airbender coasters, so I wanted to show them off. If we have any Avatar The Last Airbender fans in the comments, sign off. This is an Iroh one. I got this set from Etsy for my boyfriend for Christmas, and honestly, he was excited about it, but I think I was even more excited about it. This Zuko one, I'm a Zuko girl, which I feel like this should not come as any surprise. We have Aang on his little hang glider. Super cute. And then I think this is the one that I already showed, but we have Appa in all of his glory. If anything I said in my revision reflections resonated with you, definitely let me know down in the comments. It's always nice to hear that I'm not crazy and that other people relate to some of my feelings during the writing process. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. If you enjoyed it, comment down below a city related emoji. We are crazy close to 8,000 subscribers, so thank you. I don't think my brain has caught up to anything past 3,000, to be honest. Like every time I see that number, it confuses me. So I appreciate you. If you have a manuscript that you're thinking is going to be ready for developmental feedback in the next few months, and you're looking for someone to critique your work, I do offer manuscript critique services. I do have some slots left in March and May onward. And if you want to get in earlier, I'm always willing to squeeze in an additional client. So feel free to check that out. Link is in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.